Pastoral Homesy as we have a chat today about venture capital and thinking about startups and the opportunities for big data in startups. I'd like to welcome the panelists and ask them to sit down at our couch whenever they're ready. I think there's some last-minute miking going on. So the issue that we're really addressing today is what are the opportunities in the real world today for taking big data and impacting healthcare? And we've invited three panelists. Brooke Byers, who's the founding member of one of the founding members of Kleiner Perkins, Caulfield & Byers, a venture capital firm just a mile away from here. Gaurav Singhal, who's the director of the Innovations Unit at Foundation Health, which you will hear about as well, and William King, who's the founder and CEO of Zephyr Health. We're going to have comments from each of the panelists, and then we're going to have a discussion and questions, hopefully, from the audience. So I'd like to kick it off by inviting Brooke to tell us some things.
Great. Thanks, Russ. And I want to thank Russ for inviting me to come today, and also thank Dean of Medicine Lloyd Minor for the invitation as well. So I brought along two friends with me today, and they are successful company pioneers in big data. And in talking with Russ and Lloyd, we thought that it would be good on the last day of the conference to have some examples of use cases of big data, small data and big data, what's going on out there. And they represent two different use case types, from foundation medicine, clinical use, being used by oncologists to make treatment decisions today, and with Zephyr Health on the drug development commercial side as well. So Stanford embraces interdisciplinary. I want to acknowledge that, and that we're here, and I think the conference and the speaker makeup and matrix of that show that. And also how I met Russ. I met Russ 15 years ago when Stanford was doing a bold experiment, which is to create an entirely new department by taking pieces from the School of Medicine and the School of Engineering. And they created the Department of Bioengineering. A very bold thing to do, and not clear it was going to work, and it worked out spectacularly well. Another example of interdisciplinary, and Russ was chair of that department for 5 years. Russ and Lloyd asked me to talk about the venture capitalist point of view on big data, and I'd like to broaden that aperture to digital health in general, and a couple of remarks and a couple of slides to show you about what's going on in that trend. But the message I want to get across today is that we've talked a lot about digital health for 20 years. Now is the time. It's really happening now, and it's the convergence of a lot of things, not just big data in the cloud and natural language processing, machine learning, mobile, you name it. Those are all the tools, but also a new approach and application and to the real needs. And there is need pull for solutions and innovation that are coming along. And why is that? It's the tectonic shifts going on in healthcare. The risk shift from traditional payers to providers, creating what we call paybiters, and the cost shift from payers to consumers. Notice the shift is going from payers in both those cases. And this is what is calling for all the rest of us and innovators like you and some of the companies I'm going to talk about to get involved, because we have to find meaning and complexity. Finding meaning and complexity and real applications and uses. So if we could go to the first slide. Thank you. In terms of activity of investor funding of digital health, this slide shows the growth. Vertical axis is dollars, x-axis is time. Last year, $4 billion was invested in digital health companies. That is roughly equal to the combined amounts in the prior 3 years. And this is still accelerating, a rate of accelerating. And those investments went into 200-something companies. So that gives you an idea how quickly this is moving. And then in terms of the categories of where that investment went, this shows the top 6 categories, but I circled for you the largest category, single category of investment in digital health is in big data and analytics. And this is the first time of all the prior years that's been the top category. In terms of who's doing this investing, on the left side are venture capital firms. Our firm is the most active, so maybe that's why I got invited. And on the right are corporate investors, and then of course there are angels and other coalitions of investors and individuals as well. But all this to say, quite a bit of activity, and a lot of firms have now committed themselves to investing in digital health, big data, analytics, population health tools, mobile health, and all of that, and have hired partners specifically to do that. Just to give you an example, to illustrate with more specifics, because specifics is what I was aiming for in the panel this morning and putting it together. This is the portfolio at our firm of digital health companies. 2 that are on the panel this morning, Zephyr Health and Foundation Medicine, and these others as well. And they go from mobile individual to analytics to big data to other application. Practice Fusion is an EMR, EHR as well. But I also want to point out the 4 company logos on the bottom. Those are all companies that work in cybersecurity and IT security and data security. We have to keep that in mind, that with all the data that is here, we have to assume always that it's being hacked. That's the safe assumption, I think, for all enterprises with their data. And then it's always fun to talk about which companies might go public. Going public is just a funding activity. That's all it is. It's a way of getting a lot of funding into a company so it can grow broader and faster. But I just thought, just for kicks, you would want to see this. This is a Rock Health survey. By the way, almost all the slides I'm showing come from Rock Health, and I suggest you go to the Rock Health site. There's a treasure trove of data on digital health there. And they did a survey of their members and readers and followers about which companies might go public. And what does this mean? This just means that these companies have gotten to a point of maturity and development to where they can raise capital in the public market. Stage of deployment of analytics. So big data is not really worth anything unless there's good analytics to go with it, and visualization, as you'll hear in a few minutes, but analytics. And this is a survey taken asking, at what stage is your organization today in the deployment of analytics? And I've circled down at the bottom the word considering. That's the orange part. And I've circled life sciences and healthcare. And you'll see that a majority of companies in life science and healthcare are considering deploying analytics. Considering it. And then we go to the ones at what stage is your organization today in the deployment of analytics? And it's well below 10 or 15%. So there's a lot to be done. That's a lot of opportunity for all of you, and a lot of opportunity for new companies, and also for development in research enterprises like universities and institutes. The final point I want to make is that who's going to pay for all this? And often it's the payers. I want to come back to that. The payers is the second largest segment in U.S. healthcare analytics, and if you could read the small print, it actually is the fastest growing and will be up to 40% of the purchasers of analytics capability and tools in the next few years. I've circled that part, but also providers and hospitals and the individual providers as well. So lots of opportunity in analytics. So with that, I'd like to turn it over first to Gaurav from Foundation Medicine to talk about how they're using big data and analytics